write out the card, bake the cake, and crack open your finest case of Vimto, because we are having a party. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro is 3 years old and we're celebrating. Yeah, that's right, I celebrate my camera's birthdays. There's nothing weird about that. Look, it's a tradition to give somebody a present on their birthday, so you might be asking, what did I get for my 6K Pro? Well, I actually decided to go really big and got a whole new main circuit board. I mean, I say I did. It was more like Blackmagic did. Let me rewind a bit. One day I'm shooting video with my 6K Pro, no problem, I'm happy as Larry. The next day I come to use the camera and nothing, it won't turn on. I do the usual things, swap the battery to one that I know is fully charged. Nothing. Plug it into the mains. Nothing. Try different lenses to see if there's some sort of conflict. Nothing. Different memory card. Nothing. Slowly it dawns on me, the camera is completely and utterly dead. In a bit of a panic, I follow some instructions on the internet about how to reboot the camera if it won't turn on, and still nothing. I email Blackmagic and they arranged to have it shipped out to their service centre here in the UK. Blackmagic said it would take at least 10 days to assess what was wrong with it, but within a few days, like 4 or 5, there was a knock at the door and a UPS man handed me back my camera. I excitedly turned it on and it worked. Phew. The Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro lives to film another day. Strangely, there was no information about what had been wrong with it. There was nothing in the box other than the camera. Was it as simple as, say, the power switch not working, or did they just reboot it somehow? I emailed Blackmagic curious to find out what had happened, and they informed me of the following. We discovered that your camera's main circuit board was preventing the unit from powering on. Replacing this completely resolved the behavior and the camera worked consistently after this. Now, I don't know about you, but that seemed like a pretty major failure. The whole main circuit board needed to be replaced to get it to work again. But I'm not a camera engineer, so I don't know for sure. I don't have any way of knowing if this is a common problem that people should be aware of, or if I was just unlucky. If a company makes enough products, there's probably going to be a small number that are or do become defective over time. I do know that I've had 2 Blackmagic cameras, and I do know that both have suffered major problems that have required them to be sent back to Blackmagic for repairs. I've owned several Canon cameras and not had a problem, but I've owned at least 3 Sony cameras and one of them did eventually die. So, who knows? All I can say is that Blackmagic were great in terms of fixing them without any fuss, fast and reliable, and they paid for the shipping. I assume the cameras were still under warranty, but I don't know that for sure. I can't remember. Anyway, make of that what you will. I graded all of this video with Joel Familaro's Phantom LUTs. If you like them and you want your footage to look the same way, then check out the description down below, and don't forget to use the code CHRIS15 for a discount at checkout. I say the camera is 3 years old, but it actually came out in February of 2021, making the camera between 2.5 and 3 years old. However, I didn't buy the camera as soon as it came out, so the camera to me is closer to 2 to 2 and a bit years old. I've just taken a while getting around to filming this video. Last year I made a video about the 25 lessons I'd learned in my first year of using the camera. You can check that video out up here somewhere. And as birthdays can be a time to look back and reflect on the highs and lows of the last full orbit around the sun, I thought now might be a good time to reflect on my experiences with the camera over the last 12 months, a sort of update or long-term review. So does everything I've learnt in that first year still hold true? Have there been any new developments? Do I even still use the camera? Now, I'm not someone who thinks resolution is the be-all and end-all. In fact, I'm kind of against it. All the extra space it takes up is kind of a pain, both in storage and in terms of the strain it puts on your computer. But there's no denying the picture from the 6K Pro is beautiful. It definitely brings an extra level of detail to your images, But that's not the only advantage of having a 6K sensor. If you're finishing in 4K, you have flexibility to reframe your shots in post to get a better composition, to remove unwanted distractions creeping into the frame, or even to turn one shot into two by cropping in to get a close-up from a medium shot. Just make sure that you've really nailed your focus if you're planning on doing that. Also, if you reduce a 6K image to 4K, then any noise that you might have had in that image becomes smaller and therefore looks reduced. Dynamic range also plays a part in image quality, and I've seen a number of people online reporting that Blackmagic undersell the dynamic range of the 6K sensor to protect the air sails. I don't know if that's true, I've never tested it out, maybe an idea for a future video. Either way, the camera has a very usable dynamic range, far better than cameras of the past, particularly for the style of shooting the camera is designed for. If I need to quickly get a shot, then I find myself reaching for the 6K Pro because of the internal NDs. It's just so convenient to have them built straight into the camera because, number one, you can't forget them and leave them at home. Not that I've ever had that happen to me, I'm a complete pro. I don't even know why you've brought that up. Number two, you don't have any of the fuss of fiddling with screwing filters on and screwing them off again when you're changing lenses. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know how much I just hate that. That is the worst part of filmmaking, full stop. I've seen some videos saying that the ND filters are not the best in this camera, and whilst I would agree to some extent that they're probably not the greatest ever created, I'd also say that I've never really had a problem with them, and that the quality of variable ND filters is also questionable. Unless you're going to go to the expense, both in time and money, of using drop-in filters with a matte box, then I'd pick these over the other options any day. Strangely, the camera is actually better than it was last year, and that's because of the continued updates from Blackmagic. New features keep getting added. The camera can now do more than it ever could do. The biggest of these are probably the inclusion of gyro stabilization and the ability to shoot vertical video. But there's plenty more improvements like autofocus updates and the user interface stuff. I think it's great that Blackmagic do these updates and are happy to keep improving the quality of their cameras. Who knows what features they may be able to include in the future. The camera isn't perfect, no camera is. I still find the battery life is annoyingly short, particularly if you're doing a professional shoot. Even when shooting YouTube videos, I find by the time I've set up one or two shots, the battery needs changing. I'm in a constant race to get the shot. So I finally sorted out a proper power solution. I went with this small rig V-mount plate. It's a dumb plate, so there's no power connecting to the camera, meaning you need a V-mount battery that has a D-tap out on it. Most of them do these days, but I went with this Moman Power 99 because it's nice and small, and also has a couple of USB ports on it. Of course, if you're going to do the same thing with your camera, you'll need a couple of other things. A D-tap to Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera cable, some 15mm rods to hold the V-mount plate in place, and a base plate to hold the rods to the camera. I went with this multi-purpose one from SmallRig, but there are many different types out there, so have a look around and see which ones tickle your fancy. It's strange that over the last 2 years that the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro has been out, nothing has come close to it or even tried to challenge it in any way. It still sits in a pretty unique place within the market. In fact, the only thing that does come close to it is Blackmagic's own 6K Gen 2. Yes, there are a few cameras that have encroached into the territory in some way. The Fujifilm X-H2S can shoot 6K ProRes internally. The Lumix X5 Mark II-X can record to an external SSD over USB. But for the combination of 6K resolution, internal ProRes, and internal RAW, you need to look at like the Red Komodo, which is a much more expensive camera, needs a lot more rigging to get it ready to shoot, and doesn't have internal ND filters, or XLR ports, or even a proper screen. Of course, at this point, I should probably mention the new Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K, the full frame one. That came out as I was writing this video. You could make the argument that it's a direct competitor or even a replacement, but I'm not so sure about that. If anything, it's closer to the Pocket 6K more than to the Pro, and it doesn't have the ability to record ProRes anymore. Now, I'm not saying any of these cameras are better or worse than the 6K Pro. I'd love to get my hands on any of them and really test them to compare them to the 6K Pro. Fuji, Panasonic, if you're watching, you know what to do. They're not watching. What I'm saying is, I still don't think there's anything on the market at this price point that gives you the same amount of features as the 6K Pro. There's nothing as well-rounded. So that's a look back over the last year, but birthdays are also a time to look to the future, and that leads to some obvious questions. Although the 6K Pro has been a great camera over the last couple of years, will it still be a good camera in the next 12 months? Many companies have brought out new cameras. Would they be a better investment going forward? Will there be a Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K Pro, a full frame one? Or maybe we should all just learn to love the cameras we currently own and not fall into the trap of shiny new object syndrome. Nah, you want a new camera, don't you? That's something I'm going to try and answer in a future video because this one's already getting a bit long. So if you live in the future, and I've already made that video, it should be up here somewhere. If you're in the past like me, then I don't know what video is up here, but maybe you should take a gamble and click on it anyway.